Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition in Career Services Connecting Keelhaulers series. This semester, we're starting to move a little bit away from exclusively alumni interviews to bring in some of our current cadets. And at this point, we're going to be discussing their summer internships from 2021. So today we are joined by several of our Global Studies and Maritime Affairs cadets. We have Cal Yamamoto, Alicia Porter, and Andrew Cavinta on the show today. Cadets, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat. And we'll just start by jumping right in. Kyle, we'll let you take this first question and then kind of go around. So where did you guys intern? What was your title? And how did you secure your internship? Kyle, take us away.
Will do. Thank you, Ryan. I interned this past summer. I interned with Bath Fireworks, a subsidiary of General Dynamics. I was working mainly out of Naval Base San Diego with them. My title wasn't really that clear set. However, I mostly went with what most guys call me, and I was basically a planning yard intern. As for how I secured my internship, honestly, I just had a really good conversation with a recruiter, and it kind of just opened the door from there.
Where'd you meet the recruiter?
At the career fair my sophomore year.
Good. So Kyle kind of developed that relationship through the last year and was able to keep an internship he was supposed to have in 2020 that got canceled into 2021. So Alicia, we'll let you go next.
Yeah, so I interned in the Port of LA with a company called Clean Air Engineering Maritime. I was an environmental analyst intern. How I obtained that pretty much is I had some personal connections within the port, which led me to meeting the people who run Clean Air Engineering Maritime. I shot them over an email, told them a little bit about myself, a little bit about Cal Maritime, and a little bit about how global studies was the right major for this type of internship. And from there, it kind of opened up a conversation. I had an interview and then they granted me an internship.
Nice. Andrew, last one.
All right. Yeah, I did my internship up in Humboldt County, where I was born and raised. I interned at the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District at the Woodley Island Marina. I secured the internship by networking with a known professional in the Humboldt area until I was attached in the email chain, and I was introduced by the local professional to the executive director of the Humboldt Harbor District. I was introduced as a cadet of the Maritime Academy, and Cal Maritime is actually quite well known up in Humboldt as the main bar pilot of the Humboldt Bay as an alumnus. So we have a pretty good word up there. I introduced myself and told the executive director that I recently participated in the Department of Energy's collegiate wind competition in my position on Cal Maritime's team as the project development lead. I expressed my interest in offshore wind and specifically the offshore wind terminal that is proposed in the Humboldt Bay. And we just had further discussions, and he then later offered me a job, and I got started the week after.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So cadets listening to this, big takeaway: network, whether it be career fair, personal connections, just reaching out to people. As you can see, all three cadets here got it via networking, still going through processes and stuff, have to do the interviews, but networking always helps. So Andrew, we'll stick with you. What was kind of your schedule like on your internship, kind of like hours throughout the week, days of the week, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I got really lucky. He really let me make my own schedule. He didn't really say, here, this is what you have to work. I also worked another job up at home. For this specific internship, I worked Monday through Thursday, clocked in at 9 o'clock, clocked out at 2 o'clock. But I still got like 2 weeks off. I went to Hawaii. I still got to enjoy my summer. But really a great schedule. I was really lucky.
And how long, like from the start to the end, were you at your internship?
I think June, right after the collegiate wind competition got over, I started my internship the week after. So I think June 10th, and then the Friday before I got to Maritime is when I had my last day.
Okay.
So nice. I think around like 185 hours, somewhere around there.
Nice. Alicia, what about you?
So my schedule was a bit unique. So Clean Air Engineering Maritime is run on a barge system, and they basically get tugged over to the ship and then connect from there. But since it's that type of a system, there has to be someone on the barge 24 hours a day. So there would be days where I would work 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. I worked an overnight shift, which was actually really cool. And yeah, so kind of like Andrew, I worked either Monday through Thursday or I worked Tuesday to Friday. It was 4 days a week to kind of ensure that I can keep working long term over the summer. I want to say I started around the same time, like I believe, and I ended middle of July, so around like July 20th. So I did work in the beginning and the middle of the summer, and then I was still able to have my recreation of vacations and all that fun stuff. And I think I ended with 150 hours as well.
Nice. And lastly, Kyle.
And y'all were lucky. I basically had a 5-day schedule for every week. It was Monday through Friday, 8 hours. I clocked in at typically 6 in the morning, clocked out at 2, but sometimes I clocked in literally at 5:30. Really depended on the job. And then there was actually a hot minute back in a little bit going into end of July, sort of beginning of August. I was ended up pulling overtime for a project we're working on Naval Base. So that ended up being about 55 hours a week. But yeah, overall, my schedule was ultimately, it was basically like if I was a normal employee. Like I basically worked the 8-hour shifts everybody else did. I clocked in with everybody else. I clocked out with everybody. But of course, the overtime made it a little bit different because I ended up staying up just a little bit later than everybody else. But yeah, took a bit of getting used to, but it was honestly pretty cool.
And yeah, I'm sure 55 hours a week at times gets a lot. And when did you start and then finish your internship, Kyle?
I reported into the office at Mission Valley, San Diego back in, I believe it was May 23rd. And then my final day was August 13th. So just about a week off before I had to report back to Cal Maritime for all week leader training.
Got you. All right, cool. So we talked a little bit about schedule. Alicia, we'll start with you on this next one. So what were some of the typical tasks that you had to do at your internship? And then off of that, were you working more like a lot of little projects? Were you maybe working on some longer term projects, and that was kind of the main bulk of your work?
So mine was a little bit of a mix between the two. My main task was, so since it's a clean air type of system, there was a filtering system on the barge. And pretty much what I would do is I would sit at a desk and I would make sure that all the numbers were running smoothly. If they weren't running smoothly, then I would have to, manipulate the system to ensure that they were running smoothly. There were some hiccups along the way since it is kind of a newer company. Like there were situations like where the generators weren't working and we were unable to do that type of work. So my long-term project of making sure that the numbers were good and steady shifted to like little maintenance projects. Like one day we re-oiled all of the lines on the crane. Another day we decided to paint the entire barge, and I spent probably about a week and a half doing painting, another week on cranes, and then a majority of my bulk was kind of watching those environmental numbers. So it was a nice mix because I got to do some hands-on work and I got to kind of learn as well about what exactly the system was doing and what the numbers I was watching was meant to do.
Gotcha. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, so the tasks I was responsible for, like Alicia, they were long-term and then also just some short ones. But mainly all the tasks were focused on the offshore wind terminal project. From the start, I helped organize files concerning the offshore wind terminal scattered throughout the company's F drive, and kind of got them all organized and situated into Microsoft Teams, over into gathering letters of support for the grant proposal application that the Humboldt Harbor District was working on to receive $50 million initial construction and environmental reports. Some of these letters of supports that I drafted were signed by Governor Gavin Newsom, Assemblyman Jared Huffman, and numerous other elected officials, sort of to show that we had with this project. Yeah, it was a great experience.
Nice. And Kyle, lastly, what were what was your typical tasks and projects you were working on?
So typically I did a lot of shadowing. So I basically worked alongside some of our OSRs down in by Naval Base and at BAE. So on-site representatives, I basically tagged along with them, helped them, identify like what hull are we in, what are we looking at, what electrical are we looking for? Is there any issue that was brought to us by the contractors? And kind of just helping look through drawings and seeing like, oh, this is what they're talking about, or oh yeah, they're right that this part does not exist there, so they can't really do the work on it that they're being ordered to do. In terms, that was typically kind of like the short-term stuff. Long-term, for the overtime, we ended up doing a lot of work on Zoom Wall. That was just for a fire safety audit. Took a while, and it was a pretty hefty project. So that took about a little under 3 weeks, and that was what mainly working overtime for. About a little over 900 fire sensors we had to individually test.
Sounds tedious.
It was tedious, and when you're running around like me with a ladder and about 25 pounds of gear climbing up ladder wells, it gets a bit exhausting.
It sounds like a workout too.
I lost like 15 pounds during those 2 weeks.
Nice.
That's a lot. That's good stuff. All right, Kyle, then we'll stick with you on this next question. How did your studies so far at Cal Maritime prepare you for going into this internship with Bath Iron Works? Were there any particular courses? And then also just incorporating anything else in your time at Cal Maritime. So whether that be through clubs, the Corps, sports, student jobs, things of that nature. So anything at Cal Maritime that helped you prepare for this internship.
So that's an interesting part, because really I want to say any particular courses prepared me for the internship, because this internship that I did was mainly more of an engineering focused one. And since I'm global, I really don't touch a lot of stuff. However, the overall Cal Maritime style of being on time, being efficient, working hard, that really helped me get in a groove of things down there, especially just like my time in the Corps for the past 3 years, just helping me understand like how to kind of manage all the workload, how to work with people, how to like really get a team together and say, hey, let's just hit the ground running, let's get this thing done and get it done right. So I really would say for my case, the courses didn't so much help me, but just the lifestyle on campus, this expectation that we have to be on time, we have to do good work, and that you're always gonna be part of a team really helped me out in the long run.
Got you. Alicia, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, so similarly to Kyle, Cal Maritime does give us that structure of being on time, and in some cases, being early. As much as I didn't really necessarily have to wear a uniform, but I had to show up in my work shirt, right? So every day I would have to show up in a work shirt, and just like Cal Maritime, we wear the uniforms and everything like that. The classes and courses that actually benefited me, I was actually really surprised. Obviously it being, a clean air system, right? Global studies kind of tries to incorporate some of that environmental work in there. It was actually the first major class that I took was ocean politics, and you don't realize how much pollution is involved in that. So kind of seeing that firsthand, and also as well, I took an elective called California Maritime. Obviously being from California, I wanted to take the class because seeing the type of maritime aspects that are, in my home state was pretty cool. But then to later find out through this internship how much I learned. So it was almost like I was a step ahead. The things that they were teaching me about the Port of LA and about what the company is aimed to do was a lot of what I had heard about in the class California Maritime. Like, the aspect of the port, how it was broken up, the other different ports in California that were mentioned, as well as, the pollution aspects that are affected. And seeing that firsthand, how I was kind of being a part of the solution instead of being part of the problem was really interesting. And kind of like, I didn't necessarily really know that there was a company out there that did this, that was helping with the pollution when I was taking that class. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds of learning about it, but also learning how to prevent it.
Nice. And Andrew, lastly, for you.
Yeah, like Alicia said, ocean politics really had a huge impact on where I ended up and my goals to get into the workforce. after graduation. And I remember in freshman year in ocean politics, Dr. Samler went over climate change and how the maritime industry can have a big impact in solving climate change, and specifically talked about offshore wind and offshore renewable energy. And she talked about Humboldt, my hometown, being one of the call areas and being one of the best spots to site an offshore wind farm. So I took that knowledge and I really built on it. I got involved in the collegiate wind competition team here at Cal Maritime. And I recommend every single cadet that's slightly interested in renewable energy to join that, to join the collegiate wind competition team here on campus. But yeah, it really prepared me well to enter this internship. We use Microsoft Teams in the collegiate wind competition to organize the sub teams of project development and the engineering. So yeah, it definitely prepared me really well.
Nice. Good to know that campus is doing a good job of helping setting you guys up in various forms, whether it's clubs, classes, the core, all that stuff is good. Definitely. Alicia, we'll go with you on this one. What were some of the things that popped up during the internship that you might not have been prepared for? And how did you address them or handle them while you were on the job?
Yeah, so a big part of it, right, for mine, I mentioned it a little earlier. I had never seen this type of system before. It was more of like an engineering type thing, which was really interesting, being global studies and kind of getting that engineering experience. But a lot of it that, was learning how to manipulate the system to run smoothly, pretty much. So I'd have to, learn exactly how to manipulate that in the correct way to kind of not necessarily have everything fall back onto my shoulders, right? So it was really nice because I had the vice president of the company who was sitting at the desk right next to me. And in the beginning, when he was teaching me about it, he would always say, okay, ask me if you have any questions, like saying like, let me know before you change anything, so I know that you're doing the right thing. And from there, I got a lot of experience with that so often, to the point where I could change the numbers myself. There were other challenges that popped up as well. I mentioned earlier kind of about the generators kind of shutting down. Obviously that's not like a me problem, but like I wouldn't have to go fix it. But it kind of gave me different aspects of the job that I wasn't necessarily expecting to do. So it was a lot of adapting and kind of changing and being fluid. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Kyle, what about you?
Obviously, the one thing I did not expect at all was the amount of engineering. But overall, I think for me personally, especially what I didn't expect was that how actually simple some of it was. Like it wasn't like this crazy, like I got to draft an entire ship design, or I need to create an entire system. Like some of us really would just be like, so I shadowed with my two guys, Matt and Cy, really awesome dudes that I first teamed up with. We worked on I believe it was DEG 59, the guided missile destroyer. And basically we were just walking around the ship and they were showing me the drawing saying, hey, this is what you're looking for. And there's cable, everything's labeled when you're looking for it. So the one thing I didn't expect at all was that it's fairly simple. It's just a matter of getting into the routine and kind of getting used to looking for really paying attention to details. And I think most of all too, like I said before, engineering, a lot of that stuff I wasn't prepared for. But I think the one thing that helped me in the long run was I wasn't afraid to ask for help. And I think that's something that cadets need to really get in their head, is that, hey, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Like I remember I asked a question, they would kind of have a laugh for like 5 seconds and then they would help me out. And I can tell you right now, that's better than having it where you don't ask questions and you pretend to know what you're doing and then you mess up, because then you're never going to live that down. It's going to be more than 5 seconds. I can tell you that much.
Definitely. And actually, Kyle, good point that you bring up there, because there was a survey for employers with interns and new grads that they said the biggest thing that they see that students or new grads don't do is ask questions. And so you bringing that up, I think is good, because employers do want to see that. They're not looking for you guys to know everything. They want you to learn and ask if you need to, so you're not messing things up and doing things right, or mostly right the first time and going from there. Andrew, we'll let you answer this one. last. So anything that popped up that you kind of weren't prepared for, and then how'd you address and handle it?
I think something that popped up that I wasn't really expecting was freedom to explore different programs and do the research and look into these huge programs for funding. So prior to our application for the Port Infrastructure Development Grant, I was tasked with going through the EDA, the Economic Development Administration's current listed programs, and finding some programs that would work best for the Humboldt Harbor District to apply for. So I definitely was having some trouble in the beginning, how to navigate through these hundreds of different programs that were posted. And I really was, like Kyle and Alicia said, reaching out for help for people that have 30 plus years of experience in the industry, and really being appreciative and being willing to listen and sit down and enjoying their help. But yeah, I think it was something that was hard, but I that's where I really learned the most from, was in those hard situations.
Nice. Good. Cool. Andrew, we'll keep it with you now on this one. You guys kind of touched on it a little bit, but some internships will provide more focused or like built-in mentorship kind of programs within their internship, and then other ones are a little bit more informal. So kind of where did your internships fall on that? Was it more of a formal process, or like, hey, I'm here, ask questions, shadow type thing? So just kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the latter one, ask questions and shadow and get the most. You get out what you put in, was really the format of my internship. So I, under the executive director, who was kind of the boss at the job, he would show me the layout and the kind of the scope of the project that we were working on. And that's where I learned a ton, and I really appreciated that. And I also think when we had some huge shadowing moments were when when they came to the marina, and seeing how these developers in offshore wind, which is a position that I hope to get, whether it's a developer or a project manager for an offshore wind farm, seeing how they operated with a planning department, which we, the Humboldt Harbor District, was super influential, and I really enjoyed that experience.
Nice. Kyle, what did you take? What it sounded like yours was more shadowing, but maybe not as formal.
It was a little bit of a mix, honestly, because for the first part of it, like I would say like about 3/4 of it, it was shadowing. It was kind of just flying around, asking questions, getting an understanding of what the planning yard does, what the home port, how the home ports work for Bath Iron Works. But that time on Zoom was cool for me because that very much like it was nice, because they were basically telling me like, hey, we know you do good work. We know we can, like, we trust you to handle this. Like, here's what we want you to do. And it was sort of like okay, let's do it and hit the ground running. I had really great mentors there: John Piscatello, Craig Wyman, Andy McKellar. Like, there was just so many, and like a whole lot of people that just like would probably take too long to name them all. But overall, it was just great because shadowing them all, like all of them, I think that was a cool part too, is like sometimes I didn't even have to ask. They automatically were telling me like, oh yeah, this is what I do. This is where I came from. A lot of them told me, like I remember one guy was telling me that, he was a high school dropout. He got his GED, and now he's one of the top engineers in the DEG 1000 program for Bath Iron Works. So it's really cool to hear like such varied backgrounds, because something I learned especially is like it's super diverse there. There's so many different backgrounds, so many different majors, so many different. I come from Maine. Oh, I come from SoCal. Oh, I'm from Washington. Or I think one guy was actually from Wisconsin that I met. So overall, it's just a real interesting one, especially because this particular Bath Iron Works internship, this was the first one they've ever done for the home ports. So I was the first one they ever had out at office, because typically Bath Iron Works, if you do an internship with them, you'd be going to Bath, Maine at the actual shipyard. So overall, it's a very new experience for them. I kind of basically, it was kind of cool too, because in a way I was also helping them figure out like, okay, how can we plan and make a more efficient experience for the next year and a year after that for them.
Gotcha. You're the guinea pig for the program for them.
Yep.
Can be good and bad sometimes. But Alicia, we'll let you answer last.
Yeah, so mine was also a little bit of both, right? There was some shadowing going on. I was given a little more free range of things, kind of doing my own thing, being trusted with doing my own thing, but also, there were, much like Kyle, there were like a wide range of background of people. You had people who were working on the barge that also worked on the oil platform. So they would work at the barge for 2 weeks, go out to the oil platform for 2 weeks. And so I got to interact with a bunch of different people. And it was super interesting for myself as well, because a lot of these guys are union workers who, just who don't necessarily have a college degree. So seeing and hearing exactly how they got there. And also too, a lot of them didn't really know a lot about Cal Maritime. So kind of them learning that there's a school out there that is producing people like engineers, marine transportation majors, even like, global studies and environmental people who do these, who are, getting set up for the long term in their field was really interesting. And also too, I mentioned earlier the barge system would get tugged over to the ships, and I think the tug company there, I think nearly every person on that tug was a graduate of Cal Maritime back from 2001 to as recent as 2018. So kind of, I think the first thing one of the guys said to me, he was like, "Oh, you're at CMA doing your internship, aren't you?" Like stuff like that, kind of seeing how small the maritime industry is, but also how big it is, right? Because I had both. I had people who had mutual friends, and then I had people that I worked with who hadn't really heard of it. So kind of seeing both aspects and both worlds of the maritime industry was super interesting.
Nice, nice. Then Alicia, we're gonna keep it right here with you. So what was, could be one or a couple of your favorite things of the internship, and then what was maybe a least favorite thing from the internship?
I think probably a few of my most favorite things were kind of getting involved in the workforce and kind of seeing exactly what my major can do, right? I can do a wide range of things with it, and seeing one of those things was super awesome. The uniqueness of the company as well. There's not a lot of companies out there that do what this company does. And also like learning. I got to learn, how the crane system worked that I wouldn't get to learn being a global studies major at school, right? Those are more engineered towards the engineers, right? So kind of getting that experience that I wouldn't get here was super interesting. Probably one of the more difficult things for me was the uniqueness in the work schedule, but it was also super interesting because as much as it can be seen as like, oh, I just had to work an overnight shift, it's also like, when will I ever get to do that again? When will I ever get to work overnight in the port of LA? If that's something that I decide to do, of course, then I'll do it then. But just kind of seeing the different aspects of life on the port.
Since it looks like we lost Andrew, Kyle, you're up next.
Yeah, my favorite part, I can really sum it up in just 2 words. My favorite part was the people. It was just awesome because Cal Maritime, one big thing we focus on leadership. I'm the lead peer coach for LDP, and something I've always told cadets and my cohorts when I teach them is that leadership is a very big people business. It's a service industry, and something I was just basically in communicating with a lot of different people from different backgrounds. I kind of learned like, wow, this is actually like it's pretty easy to get a good team together. I think honestly, overall, yeah, it was just the people. I met some people from BAE, a lot of alumni at BAE actually, that like at least 4 of them that I remember just talking and being like, "Hey, what's up?" Because I remember my hard hat actually has my name emblazoned, and then it was Brendan Monsignor. Actually, we were at a little like circle meeting for, I believe it was the USS Preble, and we were just having this meeting with the chief and all, and he saw me from across the way, and he had this look of like, "I know you." But yeah, it was really cool just all the people I've met, the lessons I learned from them. They all had such different experiences. It was just a great time. I think the only thing I can say was my least favorite was really 2 things. I think mainly because, like I said, this internship was relatively new. So my least favorite thing was just like the first couple of weeks, because mainly it was just trying to figure out like, what are they going to have me do? And also waiting for a bunch of stuff like my BAE pass, my DBIDS pass, which lets me get in the base. It was just basically a boring 2 weeks. And then besides that, I'll say my least favorite part was the overtime, because holy cow, you can only run a ladder up about I remember I climbed up 2 decks on a ladder well from, I think it was like the third level to O1 deck with while carrying a ladder and about 25 pounds of gear. It was an interesting time.
Work your balance.
Yep.
And Andrew, now that you're back,
Yeah.
yeah, what about you for favorite things from the internship and then least favorite?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, circling back again to those when we had those potential investors come from a huge offshore wind company. I don't know if I could say their name. I signed a NDA, so I won't be able to get into.
We can keep that non-disclosure.
All right, yeah. But maybe when we took the Harbor District's boat over to the abandoned pulp mill that shut down in the late 80s. Humboldt used to be a thriving timber and pulp community, and when that industry crashed, so did those mills. And so to go there and see the layout of the offshore wind terminal and kind of be a part of this project that will revitalize our port, that was super rewarding, and it's going to be really rewarding when construction starts. And I would also say gathering those letters of support and attaching them to our grant proposal, really making a strong case for why Humboldt deserves that $50 million. And obviously getting signatures from the governor of California and Congressman Jared Huffman was really awesome, and it's definitely some of my favorite aspects of the internship. Least favorite, I would say again, kind of like the overview tasks, more of the large scale project scheduling, but again, they were learning experiences. So I really didn't have a least favorite. They were all great learning experiences for me.
That's the right thing to say.
Yeah.
No, we all see in jobs and internships, some things is just not as fun as other parts.
Exactly.
You know, it's just the nature of the beast. Kyle, so now we'll kick it to you on this one. How do you see this internship with Bath Iron Works kind of fitting into your overall career goals, whether it's kind of within this industry or even just skills and qualities and things like that you can take away from it looking into the future for you?
Honestly, I've been looking at a possible career in the Navy as a surface warfare officer. So it's actually a pretty cool experience for me because now I have a more in-depth understanding of how these ships work and where the electrical is, where all these certain parts and areas that we really got to focus on are, which kind of helps me, kind of gives me a little bit of an edge compared to the other applicants who probably never been on one of these ships before. Besides that, just to help me develop better people skills, help me kind of develop these sort of an ability to better like adapt to situations, because a lot of stuff did kind of just change like here and there. No, also definitely was an exercise in patience at some points.
Always is.
But overall, yeah, I think it just helped me develop some better skills, helped me really hone down skills that Cal Maritime has been trying to instill in me since my freshman year. And it's given me an ability to network, and I've met people both in Bath Iron Works and also in the Navy. So I've had this kind of network now that I have people I can talk to, like I said, my supervisors like Craig Wyman, all of my supervisors, I still have their numbers too. So I can kind of just text them every time. They even told them, they kind of told me too, to kind of just check in every now and then and just tell them how I'm doing, even though I just don't work for them. I think for me too, kind of go back to that last question, it's kind of what stuck me most of all was like how like, even if though I'm not working, how they still want to stay connected to me. They still want to keep that relationship.
Nice. Yep. And that's, how you do the networking is not just when you're there, but just staying in touch with them, even quickly here and there over a couple months to make sure that they remember you. Andrew, and you've kind of talked about this, how this does fit into your career goals. So kind of expand on that a little bit. You're good.
All right. Yeah. Wi-Fi up here at North is kind of in and out.
Everyone's back on campus now. It gets dicey again.
It's stressed. So this internship was extremely helpful. In the future, like I said, I hope to be in the offshore wind industry as a developer or as a project manager for an offshore wind project. So this gave me a ton of exposure to the offshore wind industry. Really, what I enjoyed about it was the freedom within it, but also the structure that I had with the tasks that the executive director handed upon me. whether that was gathering community support, which is extremely needed when you're working on these farms that are going to have a environmental impact. But being able to articulate to the community and with elected officials that we need renewable energy and we need to tap in to the offshore wind resource that California has a plethora of. So yeah, it was a great experience, and I definitely see this fitting into my career.
Nice. And Alicia, lastly.
Yeah, so for me, my internship actually opened my eyes to a different aspect of work that I didn't necessarily consider. So I was someone who always was like, yeah, like I'm either going to go military, or I'm going to be a firefighter, or something in the public service realm. And seeing that there is something out there that is still public service, kind of really opened my eyes. And much like Kyle and Andrew, I've been in contact with the people that I worked with. They actually, texted me and was like, hey, like good luck with your move-in and at school and stuff like that. Same thing, they are really interested in keeping in contact with me and kind of seeing if there's a future there, which would be awesome. Whether that be another internship next summer, since I'm only a junior, and kind of interning maybe again with them next summer for the work experience to lead into plans after college. And so that network kind of, again, just opened my eyes as to another aspect that I would love to do. The thing that I noticed with my internship too is it was never, for me, it was, especially after once I started working, it became more than just a check off the box to graduate, right? It became, okay, this is actually something that I'm interested in and that I could see myself doing in the long run. So yeah, really, really kind of putting myself in a different situation of what I wouldn't normally necessarily be thought I would enjoy. Doing that work really kind of spiked that interest and showed me all of the different options that are out there.
Nice. That's great to hear too, because I mean, even like you'll talk to people even within industry, and they don't always even know everything that's involved with that particular industry or in these different options within the maritime industry for this, for instance, here. And so, yeah, that's why internships are great, because you might end up doing something you didn't ever think about or really know about. And it opens your eyes to, okay, there's a different path that I might take for sure. So, Andrew, we'll let you take this one away to start, kind of closing thoughts. So what would be overall advice that you would give to cadets looking for internships in this upcoming year?
Yeah, like I said, if you're interested in renewable energy, obviously join the WIN team. But if you're interested in another aspect, whether that be environmental, get in touch and get talking to your environmental teachers. Dr. Wade has a bunch of resources for you. And then that goes the same for IBL, obviously, as well. Take constructive criticism always. Be open to taking and learning these new lessons that people with experience, whether that be your tenured teachers or your genius career advisor, Ryan Rodriguez, take what you can get, and definitely be open to all avenues. Keep all your doors open.
I appreciate the compliment. Ryan Scheidmantel is a great career coordinator too. So we got two of us in here. Alicia, what about you?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice I can give is really, don't get discouraged, right? You might look at it like, oh, there's X amount of people in my class. I'm going to have such a hard time finding an internship, but that's really not the case, because a lot of times too, career services sends out a bunch of emails about internships, right? To kind of help us in that right direction. Kind of start those conversations. Do your own research. A big thing for me, how I obtained my internship was like through my own research, and, kind of taking that next step to starting that conversation, because you never know, they might say, oh, we're not looking for an internship right now, but, come back to us next year or something like that. And you kind of keep in contact with those people, and also as well, kind of just starting those conversations, because for me, it kind of took me in that right step. And it comes, when you least expect it. So really just keep your options open. Start those conversations. Don't be discouraged if you get turned down or turned away or anything like that, because there's always something out there. And also, I think Andrew touched on it earlier, but kind of you're gonna get out what you put in. So if you really want something out of it, then really go in and be like, you know what? Yeah, like I'm gonna spend my summer learning more about this topic or learning more about this. And so I think that was probably the most beneficial part for me as well.
Nice. And Alicia, I like how you said, don't get discouraged, because it is a process to get an internship, and part of it is just getting told no. Like you said, they might not have something, or you might interview and you might not get the position. So staying persistent definitely will help. Kyle, what about you? Closing thoughts and advice?
Honestly, just put yourself out there. And especially I tell people all the time is just like I said, I got my internship because I had a conversation. I remember Michael Ross from BIW is one of the recruiters. I remember I just saw him and Vanessa Snyder at the career fair. I noticed nobody was talking to them. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll talk to him, because I've heard of Bad Fireworks, but never read too much detail. So I went up and talked to him. I gave him my resume and I said, hey, like, I know you're probably looking for engineers, but I'm a global studies, but here's my resume. And then we had a conversation. And Dean Meyer was kind of funny, actually. He later on talked to me after, fairly recently, actually. He was talking and said, like, because he kind of got some feedback from Michael Ross about, like, when I first talked to him, he kind of said that he kind of gave me this pat on the back, because essentially what he told me was that, like, Michael told him that, I came up to them, I was nervous, but I kind of was like, told him, like, I know I'm a bit nervous, I know I'm not what you're looking for, but I'm willing to work. And he said that really made the difference in why they chose you for the internship, because you went up to him, you said, hey, I want to work. So really overall, I tell people the time is like, just really network, talk to people, and don't just talk to them about an internship and never talk to them again. Like, seriously, just do check-ins, like, develop a real authentic relationship. And also along the lines of authenticity, be authentic when you're talking to them too. If you're not looking for a job, you just want to know, be yourself, because the last thing you want to do is kind of set this precedent of, oh yeah, look at this guy, look at them, they're so straightforward and all. The reality is that's not how you usually are. Just be honest with people and just be yourself. And I can tell you right now, that's going to open way more doors for you, because a lot of employers appreciate that nowadays. When someone is honest with them, when someone is open with them, and the person they get in their office is the same person they see if they're having to run into them outside of work.
Nice. And Kyle, I think you brought up two good points right there. Is first, like, don't self-select yourself out of a process. If you're interested in a company or positions that they might have, and Alicia, you had the same thing with your internship being a little bit more engineering based, let them tell you no. Let them tell you, we're really looking for engineers. Don't guess what they're going to say, and by that you don't even give yourself a shot. And second, Kyle, I think you put it perfectly. Be authentic when you network. Be up front with them, show them who you really are, and develop those authentic relationships. So then you're not just asking them for, hey, do you guys have an internship? Hey, do you have a job? It's because you just ask people for something, they're less apt to want to help you out, but you develop that relationship with them. And I think all three of you kind of talked about that, how you got your internships was through that. It wasn't just, hey, do you have an internship? Can I intern with you guys? It was a process to get there. And that's really how you make those professional networks work for you. So with that is all that I have. And I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your morning. Andrew, braving the north Wi-Fi. You're a little farther away from us down here on lower campus, so it might signal's not quite as strong. But thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
I think one other final piece of advice I have, especially for our female cadets, I know I've heard from some female cadets that, they don't feel represented, or they feel like there's not really a job for them. I will tell you right now, Bad Fireworks wants you to work for them. I worked under some very, very awesome women, Mariah Floods, Maggie Luz, Carrie Hernack. Carrie Hernack especially, she's worked in the shipyard, in BIW shipyard, for almost 20 years. She's one of their lead engineers. I worked with her personally during the Zoom vault. So overall, I would tell people, tell you guys, really, check out Bad Fireworks, check out all these different things. Going back to what we said before, like, don't count yourself out. Just go talk to them. Let them tell you no. Like, go, just shoot your shot. Go for it. Be authentic when you do it, and trust me, you'll be surprised how many doors open your way just by showing just employers like, hey, this person knows what they want, and they're gonna do the work to get it. That'll open so many doors for you. It's not even funny.
Awesome. Good closing advice, Kyle. And again, thank you, you three. And cadets, if you wanted to reach out to Alicia, Andrew, and Kyle, they're always around campus, whether it's specifically what they did or the company or so on and so forth. They can be a part of your resources as well. So it's not just your professors, it's not just, you know, career services or employers coming on campus. It's your fellow cadets as well, and having those conversations too. So thank you guys again very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
My pleasure, Ryan.
Thank you.